Welcome to Metaphysical Soul Speak. I'm your host, Elena Fox Starks. Well, guys, I hope you had a terrific Earth Day. I watched the most beautiful thunder and lightning storm that it just lasted for hours, kind of hovered over the city. It was a very slow-moving storm, and it was very foggy, very mystical looking. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And it was very gray, but the clouds were puffy and white and also dark brooding gray, almost black, and then every color in between. And it was just really beautiful outside. And at one point I came into my bedroom and looked out the front window just to look at the clouds. And wouldn't you know it, there was a complete rainbow right across the street near the little river that used to be just nothing more than a wash. But because of all the rain we've had, it's kind of like a little river now. And this rainbow was just very barely visible. It only lasted for about 1 minute. But it was very low. It was weird because usually rainbows are way up in the sky. This one was below the tree line. It was below the tree. Like there's eucalyptus, very old eucalyptus trees. I would say they're minimal 100 years old, maybe 200, but they're very, very tall. And they're very big. It's like a grove of eucalyptus trees. And there's one tree that stands out taller than the rest, directly across the street where the green parrots live, and the rainbow was in the middle of that tree. I have never in my life seen a rainbow so little. I almost felt like, thank you, God, for my own private rainbow. But that brings the count up to, I would have to say, 6 rainbows that I've seen since in the past 10 days. So pretty awesome. I just have a feeling we're going to keep seeing the rainbows more and more. So it was a good day. I didn't get to go out. I wanted to maybe go get some sun and take a real short walk, but it was cold and rainy, and I'm still on the mend, still a little bit sick. So I just stayed in, hung out with the pigeons a little bit. I'm not feeding them now, and they understand that's our relationship. But the minute that I open the window, they come right over to me, even if I'm not going to feed them, and they're just very sweet. They just want to look at me and hang out a little bit. I looked into their baby's eyes. He finally looked at me and noticed that I was there. He's growing, little Freddie Jr., and his eyes, though, I don't know. Did you guys know that pigeons' eyes are variants in the color? Like, his eyes are a jade green, and the dad's eyes are bright orange, and the mother's eyes are dark brown, like a human's eyes, and they're extra big. They're bigger than any pigeon's eyes I've ever seen. I don't know. It's very, very weird. I don't know. I mean, have you guys ever seen a pigeon with green eyes? It seems kind of magical, right? It's so strange. Anyway, I recorded for you guys 1 minute of this glorious thunder and lightning storm, and it came out, it sounded like a bunch of static, so I'm not going to play it for you. And I'm so bummed because to be here in person, it was absolutely beautiful. It was just literally a perfect storm. If that makes any sense. Is there such a thing? I guess there is. So recently, an international panel of solar cycle scientists have predicted that the Earth will be heading into a very deep solar minimum, and it's going to be a very long one, solar cycle 25, and it will include very low activity sunspot-wise that would last for years. Now, they expect it to start by September of 2019. What this means is they expect that worldwide temperatures will lower by 2% of averages, or of the previous year's average. And our overall world cycle temperatures are now 10%. No, is it 10% or 10 times? I'm sorry, 10 times lower temperatures than we had in 1957. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And also, they do expect that when we do get sunspots, and if they do erupt and break off towards us, they're going to be bigger and more intense than ever. Than ever. Like, they just think it's going to be very dangerous, and when the sun cycle is very, very minimum like this, and what they're expecting to be zero activity for quite a bit. There's been 60% in the past year, 60% of the time there's been zero solar activity. They're getting scared because what happens is the sun's magnetosphere is weakening, and that means that the Earth's magnetosphere also is weakening. I guess it's tied together, and as it's weakening, it can allow for more cosmic radiation to come in and bombard us. So that's also, I guess, a concern. However, the good news is they said that we're not going to have a mini ice age like so many climate alarmists have said. And they're basically armchair meteorologists and armchair climatologists, and they've read a few books. And according to this panel of international scientists, they basically said, we don't believe we will be headed for a mini ice age anytime soon. So I thought that was good news. At least there's that. Now, over Casper, Wyoming, over the weekend, a man was driving and saw some really beautiful puffy white clouds. So he stopped to take pictures, like me. I'm always looking to the sky, and I'm taking pictures almost daily. I have probably 500 or 600 pictures on my phone that I've taken in the past 9 or 10 months. Actually, maybe 8 months. I think this phone I only got it 8 months ago. So I think it's been only 8 months, and I've taken 500 pictures, 600 pictures. And this guy he saw these puffy white clouds. He thought, oh, how beautiful. He shot a bunch of pictures, and he got home and saw a blue orb in the clouds. And it stayed there whether the clouds went over it or not. And he didn't know what it was. He said, I'm not going to speculate on what it is. He released these pictures to the internet, and they're very clear. On Shanti Universe, she said it was a blue orb, possibly a UFO. But according to Skywatch Media, and I'm inclined to agree with Skywatch Media because they showed the pictures up close. It's possibly Nibiru. Yeah, the planet that came around Earth before. Last time we were in closer alignment with the grand central sun in the center of the universe. Nibiru was near us, and basically the ETs on Nibiru came down to Earth and enslaved us and genetically reprogrammed us, supposedly, and they made us into slaves so that we can just mine for gold for them. which would explain why everybody's always constantly clamoring for gold. It's in our DNA. It's kind of creepy, right? Nibiru. Seriously, go to Skywatch Media on YouTube. There's a couple pictures on Shanti Universe, but there's more on Skywatch Media. I don't doubt for a second that Tyler will pick this up over at Secure Team 10 probably soon. Probably, I would have to say, in the next week, we'll probably get a glimpse on Tyler. And he'll say what he thinks, because he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's scientifically minded. He's not wrapped up in the ascension stuff. So he tells it like it is. He doesn't say it's aliens coming to rescue us, whatever. He doesn't have the, distressed maiden syndrome that a lot of people in the New Age community have. Like, oh, I can't wait for the aliens to come and rescue us. We all hope that kind of, but at the same time, for me, I'm a little bit more skeptical about, the motivations behind the ETs that may or may not come, because are they really Pleiadian? Are they going to lie to us? Are they, Like, the jury's going to be out with me for a very, very, very long time. I think mostly they're here to help, but, God put me on the planet for a reason, not so that I could be rescued by an ET race and take off through the galaxies, although that might be fun. I don't know. Jury's still out. But this blue orb looks like a planet. Absolutely a planet. Now, my friend who used to live here in the building told me that he has had multiple visions of the future. He is a wizard, self-proclaimed wizard. He's comes from a long line of hereditary witches and is even a direct descendant of Vlad the Impaler, which is not at all comforting. But he's like, yeah, maybe I'm a vampire. I've got to just, face it. That might be He was teasing me when he said that. And then I had many, many weeks in which I was terrified to open my window, thinking he would fly in as a bat. So I don't know. It just kind of freaked me out. And it's like I couldn't even look out the window for a few nights, But he told me, he said, yeah, I've had so many visions that the planets are coming. I can't wait to see the planets. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, there's going to be a couple planets that come. And when they do, they're going to rise up in the sky like the moon or the sun. We're going to have not one, but two, possibly three. It's going to be really, really trippy. So I just thought, it was his years of doing mushrooms, and I kind of blew it off. Kind of hoped he's right because it sounds interesting, but at the same time, you never know, right? Well, yeah, the Nibiru was in the sky over Casper, Wyoming. And it's possible it's over the sky, over all of our skies. We just haven't noticed it yet. So never stop staring into the sky unless you're driving, okay? Because I want to get more pictures. I want to see more. In a pond in Ohio, there was a mysterious creature that was sighted, and it didn't move or act like other fish. And this man took several pictures, and I don't know, when I look at it, to me it looks like a caiman or like a baby alligator. But, Occam's razor would suggest it'd be like a normal creature, but the scientists don't know what it is. They've been wondering about it as well. And the area in Ohio is not known for alligators. And they were thinking, though, the theory right now is that it's a very large fish that is dying and coming close to the shore because maybe it's confused and dying, and it's just an abnormally large fish. So, but the guy said he was out fishing, sitting on the banks of the pond when he heard a loud splash and then started snapping the pictures that looked like an alligator. So jury's still out on that one, but I'll keep you guys posted if it comes out to be, or turns out to be something super interesting. In San Antonio, Texas, there was a triangular-shaped UFO sighted, and you can go look on Shanti Universe channel on YouTube, and you will see footage of that. That was just released today. This is incredible footage, even though all they could see was the three lights. It's pretty good. It's not very long, but a man and woman were out together, and they saw this craft, and they were just watching it for a while, and it was just hovering. And they could see it more clear than what the camera showed, but there were three lights in a triangle formation, what they were able to get as far as footage. And they started to panic because after they watched this thing for 5 minutes, one of the lights went out, and they were like, whoa. You know, they were like, well, is it a helicopter? Well, no, because we can't hear it. And it's hovering like a helicopter can, but, you know, it's just not, there's no noise. But I've seen these triangular craft. I've seen them many, many times over Santa Barbara, and they make zero noise. I remember seeing one right above my head. I ran underneath it for like the equivalent of a block while I was on the beach, and I couldn't hear a thing from it. No, granted, the roaring ocean was next to me, but, you know, with all the waves crashing on the beach, but about what it looked like a mile up into the sky, there was a little Cessna, like a 172 plane going overhead. A lot of people fly private planes over there, and I've flown 172s. I'm not a pilot, but I've been with people that were pilots, and I learned just basic maneuvers. And last time I was in a Cessna, my friend said, why don't you take over the reins? And I flew home from Santa Barbara to Van Nuys. I was the one flying the plane, so that was pretty fun. He's like, don't tell him when I let you do this. I'm like, okay, fine. But it was pretty, he was a licensed pilot. It was pretty exciting. But standing on the beach right next to the waves that are crashing at your feet, you could still hear a Cessna up in the sky. And this was below the flight line, and it was a UFO, and it was hovering and there for a while, and then just kind of boop, blipped out, and it was gone. It just disappeared. So I guess cloaking itself, or I don't know. But this San Antonio footage, it's very short, but it looks identical to what I've seen many, many times. So on the Ascension symptom scale, we are down to a 95. 95 points out of a possible 100, where 100 would be, we don't have symptoms anymore, we're there, 100%. So 95, it's not bad, it's gone down. Today was Earth Day. I didn't really check out anything Earth Day related. The Schumann resonance news was literally not even recorded today. I don't know what happened in the lab. There was like literally no notes. And they've been putting out notes 2 to 3 times a day for weeks and weeks and weeks. Maybe that means it was a calm day. Maybe they went to Earth Day celebration where they work instead. I don't know. It's very interesting stuff, though. I thought that that was curious. I don't know. It's curious to me. It's the only word I can describe it. So I'm going to tell you guys something that happened to me this morning. I was laying in bed. As you know, I've mentioned many times, I have these curtains, and I've lived here for 10 months, since last June. And these are like very dark curtains. They're pretty much, they block the sun. So I could wake up at noon and it was never a problem. The room doesn't get bright or anything. Well, suddenly in the past couple months, the sun is so bright it's coming right through the curtains as if the curtains are wide open. Well, this morning was no different. Although I don't know what happened. I guess I didn't shut them correctly last night, and there was a little sliver of opening between the two sides, the two panels of the curtains. And when the sun came through, right when it came up over the mountain and shone through my window, I started to open my eyes, and it was like so bright. I closed my eyes again, and I felt energy, plasma energy, coming towards me from the sun. And through my eyelids, I could see codes, DNA activation codes. And the color of these codes was copper, and it was coming at me like DNA spirals, like little bits of spirals, like they're meant to activate codons in our DNA. So we were bombarded by copper coils. And it's the only way I can explain it. It's like plasma shaped like copper coils. Obviously, it's ethereal, it's multidimensional. It wasn't like literal. You know, it's not literal, it's literal, but it was coming at us from a multidimensional place, obviously. So I don't know. I don't know what that is. I'm going to ask God, though. I'm going to ask right now, and then I'm going to tell you guys what answer I get. Okay, God is telling me that the copper coils were to heal and raise the vibration of our emotional bodies. And it's for emotional balance. And it's also to recognize more beauty and love when we see it, so that we can resonate higher with that, and our vibration will be raised with that. So that was the answer I got, guys. Oh gosh, and right when I said that, wouldn't you know it, my left ear just literally stopped hearing because tinnitus. And then it just like no sound at all, but I couldn't hear anything. And then a sharp shooting. Oh, there it is. Oh, again, it's like another one. It's almost like, it sounds like someone's drumming on my eardrum. Oh, it's a third one. I'm getting like a sharp, man. When I talk about the stuff that's happening to me, more always happens right when I'm like recording, and it's so distracting. So yeah, about 3 or 4. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to mention. Yesterday, 5 separate sources said the word Tarzan to me. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means. Maybe that means something to you guys. I might do the numerology on it later. But a friend of mine from Colombia wrote and said that he's like Tarzan, you know, and he didn't explain it. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you know, Tarzan. But we have a Colombian version of Tarzan called Capac. And he's like a superhero here in Colombia. I'm like, that's really cool. And then somebody like made up a weird rap song and put it in my feed on Facebook Messenger, singing about how he's Tarzan, and he's like dancing around without a shirt and showing off his rippling muscles. He's like, I'm like Tarzan, I'm Tarzan, right? And then another person, and he's from the United States, but he's lived in Ecuador. Well, another person from Peru put something. So I'm getting this like Tarzan this and Tarzan that. And then I watched some TV show or something last night, maybe, or today, and it came up again. The word Tarzan. What do you think? You're some sort of Tarzan. And then I looked at another video on YouTube, and then also Tarzan came up. So instead of number messages, I'm getting like name messages, and that was so weird. I'm like, why do I keep getting the word Tarzan? My brother was born in Tarzana, California, but I asked my higher guidance. It's not that. He's fine. So I probably should write to him, but Tarzan keeps coming up. So speaking of coming up, I'm going to take a quick break, and coming up, I am going to channel again tonight a message. The whole show is going to be with one person. Well, stick around. I'm going to tell you who it is. You'll be surprised. I will give you a hint. He was alive a very, very, very long time ago, like over 1,500 years ago. And he's very magical minded. That's your hint. I'll be right back. Hey you, have you ever thought about having your own podcast like me? Was it even a New Year's resolution? For me, it sure was. But as I've been looking into this for months, I was daunted. There's so many questions I had. When I was trying to get this off the ground, I was wondering, how do I record the episode? How do I get it across all the platforms? How do I get my podcast on Apple Podcasts when I don't even have an iPhone? How do I get it onto Spotify and all the other places? How do I get people to listen? And how do I make money from my podcast? How do I edit it? Oh my God, I had all these questions and I was so confused until I discovered the simple answer is Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and it is ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcast. All you need to do is record it. You don't have to go out and look for people to advertise on your show. They help you. So basically what I like about podcasting is I don't have to have a video of myself. You don't know if my hair is dirty or if I'm still in my pajamas or even if I'm wearing makeup. Haha. And it's so easy. I could do this from the comfort of my own home in my living room using this amazing app right from my cell phone. So easy, right? So if you've always wanted to start your own podcast and make money, by the way, doing it, please go to anchor.fm/start. That is anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters that are already using Anchor. Again, that's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast and I can't wait to favorite you. Woohoo! Let's be broadcast podcast buddies. I'll see you there. Merlin was Welsh, and he possibly lived in the northern Britannic regions. He was a prophet, a bard, and a mystic, and referred to as a madman. But those of us who are seeking higher spiritual wisdom are often considered to be fools or madmen. I'd rather be considered that than asleep. He grew up in the forests of Tweedale in the Scottish borders, in the Northern Territory near the Scottish borders. He had absolutely zero connection to King Arthur, who lived much later. And the stories of Merlin that were written as fictional were written in 1136. But the real Merlin, the real magician, Merlin, whose real life tales of adventure were fodder for the myths and legends that came much later, He was born between the year 540 he lived from 540 to August 584. It's not really known when his birthday was. So I am connected now to Emrys Mirrodin, and we're going to have a discussion today. He came to me. I mean, God told me it's another channeling day, even though we just did one yesterday with Master Yeshua. But he said, it's another channeling day. I'm like, well, who's going to come and be my guest? And immediately, without God answering, Merlin showed up. And he said, it's me. It's Earth Day. And I just think it's appropriate for me to be Earth Day guest. Okay. So he's here now, and we are going to get started. Hi, Merlin. He says, greetings. Okay, so what did you want to talk to us about today? I wanted to talk about the Earth and ascension, he says. Okay. Did you say the color green? He's like, yeah, okay. He says, okay, all right, I'm listening. I'm going to try to say everything you say as you say it, but I want to make sure we're in tune. So he starts, the color green. It's so simple and fresh a thing, and we tend to take it for granted on this planet. But it's really and truly the most important thing that we have. It brings us literally our very breath and fills us with life. When we eat roots, herbs, vegetables, and the like, we're taking in a piece of the earth and a piece of the sun. It's grown in the soil, and it breathes in our out breath and gives us the breath that we breathe. When you eat any plant at all, it becomes sacred. And because it's your spirit that's ultimately benefiting a physical body, just eating, in and of itself, eating is a magical act. And every day in which you eat, you are performing magic by creating a means for you to continue living. This miracle is profound once you realize it. Most never do. And they fail to see the connection of magic in their everyday life. They fail to see the connection of God inside them through the magic of plants. I was an herbalist. I was a magician. I did scrying. I worked with water. I worked with earth. I worked with fire and air. I had all four magics as a part of my being from the day I was born. Even though back in my day, many people practiced folk magic, very rare was a hereditary witch, just like today. And very rare is it for a hereditary witch to have all four elements or more. Of course, because there's planet magic and spirit magic, and well, you have more available to you now than we did, but you get the general picture. When I was a boy, I would go to the fields And I was guided by the wind spirits, which I could hear speaking on the wind. I felt the energy and power of the sun as a true, powerful spiritual being. That was my day guide. The moon did not seem to be much interested in me. I loved her so, and she ignored me. But I would pick herbs by day and by night, depending on what time was right, because every plant has its hour. And every plant has its season. And if you pick something in the wrong time, it could be at worst detrimental or fatal to your health. And at best, if you pick a plant in the wrong time, it just won't have any power or potency at all. So you have to live by the rhythms and the cycles of the moon and the rhythms and the cycles of the earth and the rhythms and cycles of the sun. You have to understand each of these things. You're guided by weather. You're guided by the way in which the animals of the earth behave and function, especially when they're not your animals. Household dogs and cats tend to get lazy in their activities. They are no longer wild, and they can't give you the signs, usually, when something big is coming like a storm. So I took to the skies. I would climb to the highest mountain near me, which might have been nothing more than a hill to you, depending on where you live. But for me, that was the greatest place to have the biggest vista of my village and the surrounding lands, and of the clouds, and of the birds. I learned through the spirits of the wind when changes were coming that were caused by other men. I knew who was coming to the village before they got there. Nobody believed me that I could speak to the spirits, but, well, there you have it. I could. They just said I'm magical because I knew who would come to town before they did. But really, it was just like my good friends, the wind, telling me who they were, maybe what they wanted. So while the rest of the village sometimes were shocked or surprised or pleasantly, what's the word? It sounds like you said encumbered. Encumbered? Okay. They were pleasantly encumbered with new strangers, specifically if they were handsome, and the women around the village, well, would gather and chit-chat among themselves about handsome strangers that would arrive that seemed pleasant enough. I always knew what to expect. I got a little bit of a reputation because of this, which, well, for me, became great fun. I don't know if I want to say that, Merlin. I'm sorry. Okay. Don't go too deep into this. You know what I mean. Okay, he promises to be respectful. Okay. While I enjoyed the company of beautiful young ladies from time to time, I remained mostly unencumbered by the fairer sex. The opposite gender, if you will. Parts of me longed to marry, but I knew that my craft would not allow it. My schedule sometimes, at times, was quite rigid and inflexible. Other times, it was quite open. And those were the moments that I went to the town center, and I would imbibe a pint or two and talk to a lovely lady. But I never wanted to make it last as far as a true relationship goes. My real relationship was the inner friendship I had with my own soul and with the gods and the heavens above. I called upon different deities for different things, depending on what the purpose of my magic was to be. I really, truly developed my magic the way that every great wizard has, and the way that every budding young magician wishes he or she could. I wish to come here on this platform in the new age of extraordinary technology, because I wished to share some magic from the simpler times, some ideas that perhaps have been lost in translation, through the ages, through convention. The lack of wisdom in these matters, to me, is appalling. But I digress. I don't feel like complaining about it now. He's saying something, I'm not quite getting it. You said when we? Okay. When we walked through the fields of heather, there was nothing more magical and special than the lilt and the scent on the air. Even the birds seemed giddy, and they would chit-chatter a lot longer than would be normal for birds. Starlings, I believe they were. There was a time in the afternoon that we had to wait, and we would stand still, quiet as a mouse that's stunned. When a mouse thinks it's alone, it also squeaks quite loudly. But we had baskets that we would carry, and we would put a cloth inside, and we would wait. You have to stand just so, and you wait till the sun becomes so golden that you feel you're in a different time. And you wait until the soft scent gives a little bit of a warmth. It becomes like liquid amber honey on your tongue. You can almost taste the scent. It becomes so warm and so sweet. That's the time to pick the heather. What's the magical use of heather, you might ask? Some used it in love spells. I did not. I used it to contact the divine. I rallied my health if I was sick with sprigs of heather in a vase. He says vase, in a vase, with water. I would keep it at my writing desk. It was truly inspirational. It lifted my spirits because the magical beings that watch the heather come with the cut sprigs, and they laugh, and their laughter would ring through my ears. The dried sprigs of heather were crushed up and made into a powder and kept in a sealed tight jar for future use in magical workings. Not only was it good in potions when someone would injure a knee or have joint pain, such as arthritis, or the gout when they were crippled and unable to walk because their diets were too rich. I always added heather because it comes with an added amount of magical happiness contained in this beautiful plant. It's not by any means or stretch of the imagination the only herb that I worked with, but you see how much goes in to each individual herb, each individual plant takes so much care, and it's painstaking work. It's not for the light-hearted or the frivolous, and it's definitely not for today's youth that can't keep their mind on one thing for 5 minutes. Only for those with discipline and concentration powers are cut out for earth magic and working with herbal potions and formulae. As far as fire magic goes, I had a great deal of fun with this too. Salamanders can get hurt easily. Their feelings get hurt. You must always ask their permission to exist in your space. You must always say thank you at the end and promise you'll see them soon in the future. This way you get to know the same salamander spirits. They will stay with you throughout a lifetime if given the proper due respect. When one does not have a means to light candles, it is great fun to simply wave your hand over a candle and have it come to life before your eyes. It always gives you a thrill, even if you've done it 100 times or 1,000. Merlin, can you tell us how to do that, please? I really want to know. It takes a great deal of concentration and a little bit of magic in the blood, which most people have, but they're unaware of it. You have to tap into the ancestral lines and the codons in your own DNA must be turned on. I ask that you sit with several candles going. In a circle around you is best, but if you only have enough room to have a few candles on your desk, that's all right too. Talk to the spirits, ask them to work with you. Go into a trance and talk to your ancestors. Ask your holy guardian angel to keep you safe. Ask permission of the one God. If he does not give you permission, you'll never be able to do this. But with his permission, you still have many secrets to learn before you're able to simply point at a candle and have it turn on as if it's one of those newfangled electric lights. Did you say you guys don't go on about it anymore? To me, that's an extraordinary invention. I think I would have to mention it every day if I lived in your time. Oh, wow, that was cool. I opened my eyes and said 2121. So 21, that's a number to remember. Okay. Merlin, how do you do it? How do you do it with the fire? You concentrate your mind. You remove all other thoughts. You focus on the very tippy tip point of the candle and nowhere else. You simply imagine a flame is growing there. And it's a healthy flame, it's beautiful. It's got all the elements, all the colors. It's a steady and true warmth. Okay, so Master Merlin, do you have to stand like the magician on the tarot card with one hand up over your head? No, not at all. The fire burns within you. You have electricity inside your body. You imagine only that there's a small barrier between you and the candle. He's showing me that he could see the electrons before they knew they were electrons. And you just see that it's like a bridge that is just a little gap, several molecules deep. You touch your finger to that space, and you imagine all your ancestors behind you. You always have that connection and power. You pull in all the energy from all of your limbs and push it down the limb you're going to use, usually your right limb. And you keep your arms straight and you point to the candle wick. And you're practically touching it with your finger. Well, at least that's how I did it. The flame would grow there, but it took practice, months, I recall. It is the most practical use of fire magic. And like I said before, it always gives you a little bit of a jolt, a little bit of a thrill that you are able to perform such a feat. And it always reminded me of my magical power. Made me feel special and warm. And also at the same time, grateful to the one God. If it weren't for him, I might not have ever known my true power. I turned to him in my hours of need, in my hours of loneliness or boredom, in my hours of greatest joy. I turned my heart, my mind, every particle of my being, I turn towards that higher God energy, the higher realms. That is the way I was able to perform what others would call miracles. But truly, they're not quite miracles at all. They are a part of us, the ever-living world, an ever-changing, vibrant and alive world. Never drop your passion on the road. Keep it in your closest rucksack. Keep it not on your back, but in front of you in your heart. That's where your magic lies, is in your heart. You are a special magical being. You have all the powers of the universe inside of you, locked in your head, locked in your heart. I've spoken about wind magic and earth magic, fire magic. Now it's time to discuss water magic, fairy beings and sprites of the waterways. You know about naiads. Yes, I do. I know he's telling me that directly. Naiads are little mermaid fairies. I call them merfairies. They're cute and quick. They have little wings. They appear as insects to the untrained eye. Dragonflies, I recall. They are so spry. Are you saying spry? They're so spry. They're very fast. Only the older ones are the ones that drop, and sometimes, if you're lucky, when they die, you can see them in their true form. But usually they cloak themselves. They have a special magic that does this automatically. So they just look like a dead dragonfly or the like. But they are specialized. They can fly through the air and also swim through the rivers. They're very territorial. They like it if you bring them sweets, if you offer them an offering of a little sweet, candy or cake. They like the little cakes the most. If you offer them a cup of the river water from which they come, even though this makes no sense to you, this is what they like. They like to imagine that you come to the river to drink because they have made it so magically pure that they would hate to be insulted by you or anyone else. You will see wood nymphs frolicking near rivers quite often. And more often than you would expect, once you could peer into the higher realms, you will see Nem. Nem? He's saying Nim, N-I-M-H, and then Nem, N-E-M-H. Nem. Nema, or Nemaha are other words for them, or otherwise known as nymphs, wood nymphs, but Nem are a specific kind. They don't frolic as much, they frown a lot more often. I feel that this wisdom has been lost. They can grant you magical powers, from powers that you covet but don't have yet. Instead of being jealous, be grateful that you learn of powers that you don't have yet. Then you can come to the Nem at the river. Offer them cakes or breads that aren't too sweet. A little bit of sweet milk will do, though, or a pat of butter. If you offer them fresh clippings from herbs, they will be extremely insulted and they will run away. They might even curse you. Do not ever bring them plants. Not of any kind. It really hurts their feelings. You don't want to throw their nose out of joint. The Nem sometimes will appear as baby animals, such as a baby deer, brown with white spots on its back and maybe white stripes. They'll appear sometimes like a chipmunk, but way larger, 2 to 3 feet in height. They tend to have brown hair and striped socks. It sounds like they always wear shorts or short pants. They contain all of the wisdom that a wizard would ever need. Ah, yes, the Nem. They were one of my favorites to work with. The flower fairies, while very beautiful and cute of personality, they tended to be very flighty. They will flit to and fro and only talk to you for a couple minutes. Then they would forget what they were talking about they're not very keen on keeping up a conversation. It's not of importance to them. They're there just to take care of the flowers. But the nem are very deep. They will sit on the banks of a river and they will meditate for hours, for centuries if you would let them. The nem are very special. You must honor them. Never wear iron when you go to visit a nem. That will be insulting. They might even curse you with death, especially if you wear an iron cross. In fact, don't wear crosses at all, and I would avoid all jewelry if you want to go visit the nem. They're earth creatures, but they live always at the waterfront. And they know water magic and earth magic. They could teach you anything that you want. They can teach you how to learn how to control water. Like literally you can change the course of a river with the help of the nem's advice and information. So you're saying that they have a mental network? Yes, he says they have a mental network. So anywhere on earth they have access to their own Akashic records. He said because of the Akash, they have one of the most extensive books of shadows, and they do keep track of everything that they learn through their meditation. They are worthwhile creatures to get to know. I highly recommend it. Oh, wow. I'm like going so deep into trance, guys. It's like I'm practically falling asleep. I'm hearing him and I'm seeing what he's saying, and I'm like, wow, the nem, he's showing me their picture, or like in from his mind to mind, and it's like they have these enormous brown eyes and they're so filled with love and curiosity about the world around them. And they almost appear like little tiny, almost like toddlers or babies, human, but then they have this fur on the back of them that seems like it's a shape-shifting or an outfit type of, it's not really part of their bodies. It's like clothing. And pointy shoes he's showing me. And as he's telling me this, it's like my back is like, my bones are rattling inside my body. I'm like going so high up in vibration. Okay, what else, Master Merlin? Don't ever underestimate the power of a night fire outside in a field or meadow. Be always ever mindful of fire safety, of course. Of course, obviously. Thank you, Merlin. So he says, are you saying the sprites? Really? The sprites and the salamanders will work together and create imagery and images in the fire. You can tell your own future or the future of entire kingdoms in a single night with one fire. You have to cooperate with the salamanders and bring them an offering of your bread and throw it directly into the fire and burn your bread. They will consume the energy of the bread before it burns. And they, when their bellies are full, will be willing to chatter with you. And chatter all night they will, as long as you keep adding fuel to the fire, it will keep going. They love to create heat and warmth. It makes them feel like they're useful and they're doing something for you. And of course they are, and they're providing you light as well as safety and protection, as most wild creatures of the night are afraid of fire. As well they should be. Are you talking about a rabbit? Did that happen to you? He just showed me a rabbit sacrificed itself and jumped into the fire once when he was hungry and he didn't ask. And he said he had that rabbit foot for years and it was lucky. He thinks that might be where the idea of lucky rabbit's foot came from, possibly from him, because the story spread in the village that had happened. A young huntsman was in the woods just behind him as he was getting ready to converse with the fire spirits. And the huntsman had been tracking a rabbit, and it ran and jumped into the fire and sacrificed itself. And the young huntsman said, "I guess it was not my rabbit after all, but yours. And you looked like you needed tending to." Okay, so now Merlin says, what you must understand is when you get deep into your magic, your closeness with the one true will becomes so powerfully close. He, she, they know your every need before you ever ask. And they will provide the moment you need something. Whether it be a shelter they'll lead you to if you're lost in the woods, they'll lead you to an abandoned house, or having a rabbit sacrifice himself on the fire so that you might live another night with a good meal in your belly. They will also lead you to the good drink if you need to have a pint of mead, which is very good for you if you're sick. We don't have, can you tell us what your recipe for mead? Oh yes, there's many different kinds. I prefer clover mead. I used it with honey and also wild clover I found in the field. A sprig of, are you saying peppermint or spearmint? Either way, peppermint or spearmint. Lots of honey, but it must be allowed to ferment for a good long time, 3 to 6 months. Any other ingredients? Not unless you get a bee trapped in there. No, that's all you need. Okay. What about water? Yes, water's a part of it. Half honey, half water. And clovers filled to the brim. Okay. And mint. Clovers and mint filled to the brim. In 50-50 amounts? 30-70, 30 towards the mint and 70 towards the clover. Seal the jar with a cloth and then the lid and then a cloth and a band, and seal the whole thing in wax. Consecrate it to the lady. Consecrate it to the Lord. So basically, Mother, Father, God. Ask the bees to bless it with their spirits. Love and honor and respect the plant, the bees, and everything that had created all the ingredients that now inhabit your jar. Take the jar and turn it upside down, and once a week shake it. And you're saying in 3 to 6 weeks? In 3 to 6 months. In 3 to 6 months, you will have your beautiful mead. Just in time for the fall harvest. So I think that you started in spring and then in the fall you have the mead. He says, yep, that's true. So magical baking is another one of my specialties. I would make squash and pumpkin pie and add all the spices, and every spice stands for something new. Cinnamon is for new love and new renewal of your life force, the vigor in your bones. Also, it calls money to you. And the spice of life, new adventures, new attitudes. Cinnamon is the herb of renewal. Anise, star anise, contains all the magic of the stars. And also, it has a very strong flavor. You don't put too much of it. No more than 3 to a pie. To get the full flavor, you soak it in alcohol, drinking alcohol, for 1 to 2 weeks. 3 if you want it stronger. And add 1 spoon only of that mixture to your pie. What does anise stand for? Anise is also for money gathering, but also to have a good harvest so that you're going to be able to save your foodstuffs in case the winter is harsh. Anise will help you to salvage and save the things that you need to have a good winter. You can use the magic of anise to make sure you have enough wood for your hearth and enough generosity and kindness in your heart. It is an herb that will deal with melancholy in the most wonderful of ways. It will make you feel calm and relaxed in your body and mellow. It opens your lungs and you can pull in more vigor of the life force energy around you. It takes care of digestion issues. And it can calm your head and give you a cool head in times of fever. You put a poultice, you put it in a cloth and put this on your head. It can make your hair smell lovely if you like the smell. And it can also protect your hair from the sun as a hair rinse. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Use it sparingly, but it is a delightful herb to work with. So I put that in my pumpkin pie or my squash pies. And you're saying cardamom? No, what are you're trying to show me something. Allspice, you're saying. Allspic or allspice? We call it allspice. Yes, that's the one. He says he calls it allspic or aspic, but it wasn't. There's another herb that goes by the name aspic, and it was very confusing in old recipes. But allspice, 1 spoon of that will go a very long way and make your pie heavenly and wonderful and beyond compare. He says mine was the best in the village, and I always put a whole spoon. Nutmeg also. So what do allspice and nutmeg have to do magically? Okay. Allspice. Again, you could call it as allspice of life, but it really calls love into your life. You could specify love romantically, love friendship-wise, love as animal companion-wise, or love as in a kindly neighbor. And he's saying also, it's good for practical use, such as arthritis. It puts more of a spring in your step. Nutmeg, what's nutmeg do? Nutmeg is, he's trying to show me something. I'm not quite getting it. Oh, is it like a bundle of money? He says it brings abundance, but not in the form of money, in the form of goods. So if you needed a pack of clothing, so say you need new clothes, or you've been saving your money for a new house, nutmeg will give you the energy in which you could save more, like nuts for winter. Like even the name suggests nuts, nutmeg. So anything that you're looking to put in your house to make your house a home, also it brings the energy of warmth and security and protection. It is a protective herb to protect against negativity, spying, prying neighbors, unwanted vermin animals that will come in and eat your grain, such as mice. Nutmeg will keep them at bay. Bay leaves will keep them at bay too. Again, you mix it up, make a maceration, fill it with a spirit such as, like he showed me something kind of like Everclear or moonshine, but I think vodka would still do. Vodka is usually what we use today. So he says, yeah, you take a clear liquid alcohol and fill half full with the herb of your choice, the rest with alcohol. Make a maceration. Once a week, shake it, turn it upside down, then turn it upright, then upside down every week, and just shake it. And to add magic to everything, put it under a full moon for one night. But consequently, no. Consecrate it. Yes, okay. Consecrate it to the appropriate deities, but always ask the Lord and the Lady to bless everything, God and the Goddess, Mother and Father God. You can also use sun magic, but don't mix and match your moon and sun with one jar. You could have sun anise and you can have moon anise. Keep them on separate shelves. In fact, I suggest keeping moon items in the north, sun items in the south. That way you will never twixt and twain. You will never mix them. Okay. What about the east and the west? You don't need to keep the herbs there. That's where you keep your candles and your practical magic supplies, such as your scrolls and your writing utensils. You have a very different system than what we had. In my day, we had loose paper we made into scrolls. But however you keep it with your books, that's for the east and the west. But I recommend mostly keep those things in the west of your home, because your east is where you commune with divine and you learn of your true nature and your own spirit. I give you all of these magical, wonderful ideas because it's magic of old you could take into your new world. When you make the pumpkin pie, are you saying 1 cup of milk? 1 cup of, he's showing like old, not sour, but goat's milk that's slightly dried. So basically like condensed milk or sweet condensed milk. You could get a can of that, but he's showing me milk from a goat is how he used to do it, because he kept goats, he said, or cow milk would work as well. Also 4 eggs, 2 cups of pumpkin. Make the crust however you like, but ask the goddess Seren, the goddess of cereal and grains, Seren, ask her to bless your wheat. If you wish it to be blessed under the sunlight, you can do that. The moonlight works as well, but he prefers the sun because that gives it a different energy. That will give you a vigor and a warmth, because usually you make these things at night, in the fall, and at night is when you eat them and you want to feel warm inside. If you consecrate your ingredients in the sunlight, it will warm your body faster. Oh, it sounds like it will also increase your metabolism if it's consecrated magically in the sunlight. And then in the moonlight, what would it do? it would calm and cool you down. So anything that you make to eat, consecrate it in the moonlight during the summertime when the sun is so hot you could barely stand it. You're going to want to have moonlit blessed food. Especially your dry ingredients that you keep on a shelf. Those are the ones you consecrate to the appropriate god or goddess, as it were. And this is how you lived your life. Every day of my life, this is how I lived my life. I asked for blessings for everything that was in my house. Every rock, every crystal, every bone, every feather. Even my writing utensils, my inks. I made my own inks and they were magical. Okay, we have a couple more minutes. Master Merlin, my mage, please tell us how to make ink. The easiest way is to make ash ink. I would take a maceration of crushed up blackberries and I would mix it with the hearth ash, usually from willow or oak, but I never mixed those two. I had different magical inks for different magical purposes. Some ink I made for writing letters of love. You can make war water and black salt for letters you write to people if you wish to banish them. Wow, this might be another discussion for another day. This sounds like a long discussion right there. It's something to unravel. He says, I'm preferring crushed blueberries or blackberries. I made red ink with a maceration of crushed strawberries and raspberries mixed. And he said, I don't know if you have them, but we had berries that were red. Sometimes I would use those, but they were poisonous and they were very hard to work with. I don't recommend it. And so when you have the maceration in the vodka, like you said, yes, and then you mix that with something farther, usually with the ashes, and you mix it until it's the correct consistency. You can use lye, but it can hurt your skin, so don't do that unless you know what you're doing. Sometimes you can crush green leaves from a tree and take the juice after you pulverize it with a mortar and pestle. And that's how I got my green ink. Oh, that's cool. And that's how I cast my spells of earth with green ink. Sometimes it was hard to do, but I found dirt that would make brown ink. But I played around with it, play around with it. Ask your intuition and your higher guidance, and you'll get it done. You'll figure it out. And he says, remember to keep the inks blessed by the sun on the appropriate shelf and the ones blessed by the moon on the appropriate shelf. And that's how you live a magical life, at least in my day. Oh, thank you, Merlin, for coming to be with us. We're at the end of the hour now. So I wanted to thank you for sharing this long-lost magical ways. Thank you guys for listening. If you have any comments or questions or ideas for future shows, you may write me at mermaidgirl888@gmail.com or my preferred email, metaphysicalsoulspeak@gmail.com. But now I'm signing off with peace and joy and the high vibes of the holy fifth dimension. Until next time. Metaphysical Soul Speak is run on sponsors and listener support. This means listeners like you. If you are so inclined to support my efforts and my little podcast, please visit me at anchor.fm/metaphysical and pledge an amount of your choosing today. Thank you.